Thank you so much, Anne.
Now, last night, the Wall Street Journal reported that the White House Department of Justice informed President Donald Trump that his name does appear in the so-called Epstein files multiple times.
The White House has denied these claims. Here to break down that story and the impact it's having on Trump's MAGA base is political commentator and law lecturer Larry Donnelly. Larry, thank you so much for joining us. Jeffrey Epstein has loomed large over the election of Donald Trump for quite a long time because Donald Trump was stoking up conspiracy claims that Democrats were suppressing his name and they were all over, and that he was supplying young girls, underage girls, to very famous men. And he would release these files. This hasn't happened. Let's go back. Who is Jeffrey Epstein?
Sure. Jeffrey Epstein is a New Yorker. He's somebody who had a little bit of a Walter Mitty existence in the sense that he sort of blagged his way into various jobs without having finished his college degree. But that having been said, he went on to Bear Stearns and made a tremendous amount of money as a trader and in the financial world, worked independently, all the while built up an enormous fortune, but simultaneously became something of a New York socialite and hobnobbed with the rich and famous and the powerful, and clearly greatly enjoyed all of that, including the Clintons, including Donald Trump and many others like Prince Andrew. You know, he built a famous network of friends, but there was a much darker side, as we now know, and his predilection for sexual deviance, I think, is the only way we can describe it, including, minor girls. And, he's had a couple of different problems, first in Florida in the early part of this century, when, he spent time in prison, and then undaunted, he
spent time in prison because he was convicted of sexual offences with underage girls, and he was in prison just for 14, 18 months. He had a sweetheart deal, essentially, where the state government, they let him out.
He did. It shows, it's a real, illustration of what money will buy you in the United States.
Did he run an office from the prison?
Yes, and he
ran his office from the prison.
He effectively had a staff in the prison, and he was paying for all the renovations to the office of the sheriff, all sorts of things that are really beyond the beyond. And even the sentence he received in that instance was so at odds with the sentencing guidelines. It should be said he had a high-profile legal team, including Roy Black, including Alan Dershowitz, the famous lawyer who has also appeared in all of this, and he got his sentence knocked down to nothing. And even at that, as I said, it was like serving in Club Med.
And the thing is, they know, everyone's saying, yes, himself and Donald Trump went to many social events together. CNN even last night released more footage of them together. And the White House is just saying, well, of course they were together. They were socialites. They were in this property magnates. They were obviously going to the same events. And that is nothing. But it's a lot to do with this birthday card that Trump had sent him that's got a lot of people really riled up on this. Tell us about this.
Yes, well, the Wall Street Journal ran a piece last week indicating that for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday in 2003, that Donald Trump had done a little sketch, including a woman, and I'm not going to get into the details, but a sketch for him over the woman's private parts and all this sort of thing. And Donald Trump has instituted a $10 billion lawsuit. He denies this up and down. Now, my thinking is I can't imagine that the Wall Street Journal, an august publication, would publish a story like this unless they absolutely had the goods. The second thing I'd say, and again, we've seen Trump go after other media outlets, but those media outlets would be perceived to be on the left of the political center. The Wall Street Journal, at least editorially, is right of center. Indeed, Rupert Murdoch is involved in this. So. My own suspicion is that this and lots of other things we're seeing emanating out of the White House is a desperate attempt to get attention away from the Epstein files and the Epstein investigation, which, as you said in the intro, he used and manipulated as he ran for president in 2016 and 2024.
So we know the playbook of Donald Trump: be attacked, find someone else to attack, and get everyone to go after that. That is what he's done with Rupert Murdoch, and we've seen people being very angry at Rupert. It stoked people up again. But let's go back, because it's the Epstein list. It has been talked about by Republicans, by MAGA Republicans, by the deputy director of the FBI, who he appointed. He was a podcaster who talked about the Epstein files in the lead up to the election so much. We're going to get the files, we're going to get the files. Because the MAGA base, there's a huge amount of conspiracy theories. And Donald Trump was meant to drain the swamp. So why did he stoke it up when he was running, and now he said there's nothing to do with it? Surely he knew that this would blow up on him.
Yeah, you'd have to wonder. First of all, we talk about these Epstein files. We're taking at face value that such things exist, that there actually is this list of names of people who were there. We don't know that. We know lots of people.
But did Pam Bondi, who's the Attorney General, say, I have the list on my desk?
She said that, but she may well have been lying. We don't know exactly what is there. We've never had any proof or any evidence. Indeed, a lot of the lawyers who've been involved with this have said there's no such thing. So we don't know what's there. But here's the issue.
Can I ask you, just for people watching, what is this list? This is a list of famous people's names who took part in certain activities. And the thing is that he was blackmailing people.
And this is what Trump has used. This is the conspiracy theory, that on this list are some of the most high-profile people in the United States, including those from the political classes. And Trump manipulated this very effectively, because what Trump understands is that a lot of his base hate the elites above all.
Yes.
And they're convinced that the elites are on this list. And Trump said, when I get elected president, I'm going to flush this out. I'm going to show everybody exactly what's there. And that's why there's outrage within the MAGA camp when he said just a couple of weeks ago through his attorney general that there's nothing to see here. Forget about Epstein. We're moving on. Now we hear, in the report overnight, that Donald Trump's name is on there. Now, is in the files.
This is last night. The Wall Street Journal reported that Donald Trump was allegedly told in May that he was on the so-called Epstein list. And during Ghislaine Maxwell's trial in 2002, indeed, a list was put out there with his name, Bill Cosby's name, and David Copperfield and Bill Clinton. Their name was on it.
But I mean, this guy, as I said, had a lot of celebrity friends. Being named in this investigation, being named in any FBI investigation is not any suggestion of guilt or bad behavior or anything like that. All sorts of things make their way into these files. And I also have to think two things. Number one, I have to think that Trump knew before May that his name appeared in there. And the second thing I would say, and this is not by any attempt to defend the president, but I have to think that if there were a smoking gun in all of this, that it would have come out long ago, that it would have come out in the context of the last presidential election. I would be shocked if it didn't. So the question then becomes, why is it that he is so reticent to let this thing go? And because he let this conspiracy theory out of the bag, he's going to live and die by that conspiracy theory, because maybe there isn't very much there.
Will this damage him?
That's the question. If precedent is any dictate, nothing sticks to this guy. But he clearly is worried. And the opinion polling does show that within his base there is some anger about this. And that's why he's desperate to go for distraction. That's why he's filed this $10 billion lawsuit. That's why he's accused Barack Obama of having committed treason. That's why he's
He threw out the treason yesterday. I was like, come on now.
That's why he's throwing everything at the wall in the hopes that something will stick. And we have seen that the Wall Street Journal publication has been something of a gift, because a lot of the people who were critical about him on the Epstein files are now saying, wait a second, mainstream media is back after our guy. We need to put the Epstein stuff to one side, and we need to rally around Donald Trump. And at the end of the day, if you ask me to make a prediction, MAGA might be angry, etc., but will they abandon Donald Trump for somebody else? I just don't see it.
But they're the core MAGA fans. But there was a lot of people who voted for him this time who just didn't want to vote for Kamala Harris, and they might drift away.
And that's a really good point, because in addition to them, there's also a cohort of Americans who really aren't political, but do have a hatred for the elites. And Trump spoke directly to them. And given how close American politics is, given how razor thin the margins are, if some of those people even were to stay home and say, oh, we gave Trump a chance, but he's just like the rest of them, that could have very damaging consequences. And don't forget, the midterms are coming up quick.
Amazing. He's suing Rupert Murdoch, and not Elon Musk, who said the exact same thing. Larry Donnelly, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We really do appreciate it. Now we're going to